Hello, curious minds, and welcome to this intellectual journey. Today we delve into one of the most structured and monumental minds in history, a man whose work is as vast and ordered as a grand Gothic cathedral, designed to house the entirety of human and divine knowledge under one roof. Imagine a world in the midst of an intellectual crisis, the 13th century. Religious faith dominated thought, but suddenly forgotten texts from a Greek genius, Aristotle, made their way back to Europe. His ideas, based on pure logic and observation of the world, seemed to contradict everything that was believed. What do? Do you ban these books or try to reconcile them? That was the monumental challenge faced by Thomas Aquinas. A stout man, nicknamed the dumb ox for his studious silence, but whose mind would chart the intellectual landscape of the West for centuries. His mission to demonstrate that faith and reason not only don't oppose each other, but are the two wings that elevate the human spirit. Before we dive in, a quick note. To bring this narrative to life, I've used artificial intelligence tools to generate the images you see. Think of them as a canvas, a way to illustrate the ideas and atmosphere of what we're discussing. They won't always be a literal representation, but rather a visual accompaniment. I sincerely hope you enjoy it. To understand Thomas, we must understand the tension. On one side was the Augustinian tradition, more influenced by Plato, which often saw the material world as a shadow of true divine reality. Truth was found primarily in revelation, in faith. On the other, Aristotle, reintroduced through Arab translators like Averroes, offered a complete system for understanding reality using only reason. He spoke of causes, logic, biology, ethics, all without the need for divine revelation. In the universities, especially in Paris, the clash was brutal. Some, like the Latin Averroists, suggested there was a double truth. One truth for philosophy and another for faith, and that they could contradict each other. This was unacceptable to the church and to thinkers like Thomas. Thomas, born into an Italian noble family, chose the mendicant order of the Dominicans, an order dedicated to study and preaching. He saw the danger, but also the opportunity. He didn't believe that God, the creator of reason and author of revelation, could contradict himself. His life's project was a masterful synthesis. It wasn't about discarding Plato or Augustine, nor blindly accepting Aristotle. It was about using Aristotle's tools, his logical rigor, and his appreciation for the sensible world to construct a scientific theology. So how does Thomas begin to build this colossal bridge? He starts by defining the exact relationship between these two forms of knowledge, philosophy and theology. And he does so with a clarity that would be a game changer. Thomas establishes a key distinction. Philosophy or reason operates from the bottom up. It begins with what we can see, touch, and experience in the sensible world. From there, reason can deduce many truths, including the existence of a creator. Theology or faith operates from the top down. It begins with divine revelation, the data God has given us that we couldn't discover on our own, such as the mystery of the Trinity or the Incarnation. These are truths that are above reason. But above doesn't mean against. Herein lies Thomas's genius. Truth is one. If reason arrives at a conclusion that contradicts faith, for Thomas, it means one of two things. Either reason has made a logical error, or we have misinterpreted revelation. Reason cannot prove the mysteries of faith, but it can do two things. First, it can demonstrate the preambles of faith. That is, it can prove that God exists, and that He is one, intelligent, and good. This prepares the ground for accepting revelation. Second, reason can illuminate the mysteries of faith. Once we accept the mystery of the Trinity by faith, reason can explore it, find analogies in creation, and defend it from logical objections. Reason becomes the ancilla theologiae, the handmaiden of theology. This idea of handmaiden is sometimes misinterpreted as if philosophy were inferior. For Thomas, it's not a humiliating servitude, but an honorable collaboration. Reason protects faith from superstition and fideism, blind belief without thought, and in turn, faith protects reason from arrogance. Faith reminds philosophy that there are realities greater than what we can grasp with our senses alone. Faith expands reason's horizon, inviting it to go further. Let's think of Pope John Paul II's famous analogy of the two wings, and he was a great Thomist himself. Faith and reason are the two wings with which the human spirit rises towards the contemplation of truth. If you try to fly with only one wing, you'll crash. This balance is the cornerstone of his entire system. It allows him to take the best of Aristotle, his empiricism and logic, without falling into a materialism that denies the divine. And it allows him to maintain the primacy of Christian faith without falling into a mysticism that disdains the world. With this foundation laid, Thomas embarks on the most ambitious task of all: to construct a metaphysics, a theory of reality itself, that integrates the Christian God with the world we observe. This is where we delve into the heart of his thought. To understand Thomas's metaphysics, we must understand Aristotle. Aristotle explained change in the world using two concepts, potency and act. A seed is in potency of being a tree. A tree is a seed in act. It's the transition from potentiality to actuality. Thomas adopts this but gives it a radical theological depth. Everything in the created world is a mix of potency and act. A student is in potency of becoming a wise person. Marble is in potency of becoming a statue. There's always a potentiality that hasn't yet been realized. But this chain of potency to act cannot be infinite. There must be something that is pure act, something that has no unrealized potency, something that is complete perfection, that is not in the process of becoming, but simply is. That, for Thomas, is God. This leads us to his second great distinction, essence and existence. Essence is what something is. The essence of a unicorn is to be a horse with a horn. The essence of a human being is to be a rational animal. We can understand the essence of something without knowing if it exists. In all creatures, essence and existence are distinct. My essence, my humanity, doesn't guarantee my existence. I had to receive existence from my parents, who received it from theirs. Our existence is contingent, participated, received. Again, this chain cannot be infinite. There must be a being whose essence is to exist, a being that does not have existence, but is existence itself. This is Thomas's central philosophical discovery. This being is God, and Thomas defines him with an impressive Latin phrase, ipsum esse subsistens, that is, subsistent being itself. God is not a being among others, not even the greatest. God is the very source of all being, the ocean of existence from which all created things are merely drops. This has enormous consequences. It means that the world is not an illusion. It is real. It is good. Why? Because it participates in God's being. Every existing thing, from a star to an ant, has dignity because its existence is a direct gift from the source of all being. Here we see the brilliant synthesis. Thomas uses Aristotle's logic, act, and potency to arrive at a profoundly biblical conclusion. God is not just Aristotle's unmoved mover, a distant logical cause. He is the I am who I am from the book of Exodus. This metaphysics of being distances him from Plato. For Plato, the sensible world was an imperfect copy of perfect forms. For Thomas, the sensible world is the starting point. It is real and good because its being flows from God. It also distances him from a pantheistic view where everything is God. No, the world does not is God. God is esse being, while creatures have esse being. There's an infinite distinction between the creator and creation, but also an intimate connection. Think of it this way. For Thomas, God is not a watchmaker who creates the world and then leaves it to run, as some Enlightenment thinkers would later believe. God is present in every instant, actively sustaining every single thing in existence. If God were to stop thinking of you, if he were to withdraw his act of being, you wouldn't die. You would simply cease to exist. You would return to nothingness. This is the radical dependence that every creature has on the Creator. This metaphysics is the foundation of everything else. It's the basis for his proofs of God's existence, his vision of the human being, and his ethics. Because if God is being itself, then knowing him is the ultimate goal of existence. And if reason can deduce so much about reality starting only from observation, can reason then prove that this ipsum esse subsistens actually exists? This is where we enter his most famous arguments. Thomas Aquinas is perhaps most famous for his 5 ways, 5 philosophical arguments to demonstrate the existence of God. They are found in his monumental work, the Summa Theologica, and it's crucial to understand what they are not. They are not appeals to faith. They do not quote the Bible. They are a posteriori arguments. This means they begin with the observation of the world around us. They are the epitome of his method, reason and experience first. Thomas tells us, look around you. The world itself cries out that it has a cause. The first way is the way of motion. It's simple. We see things in the world that are in motion or changing, but nothing moves itself. Something that is in potency of moving, a still ball, must be moved by something that is already in act of moving, a foot. This chain cannot go back infinitely. You can't have an infinite chain of moved movers. Why? Because if there's no first mover that moves without being moved, the entire chain would never have started moving. That unmoved mover everyone understands is God. The second way is the way of efficient cause. It's very similar. We see an order of causes in the world. The statue is caused by the sculptor. The sculptor was caused by his parents. Nothing can be the efficient cause of itself because that would mean it existed before it existed, which is absurd. Again, we cannot go back infinitely in causes. There must be an uncaused first cause. If there is no first cause, there would be no intermediate causes, and therefore no final effects like us. That first cause is God. The third way is the way of contingency and necessity. This one is a bit more subtle. We look at the world and see contingent things. That is, things that can be or not be. They are born and die. They exist, but they might not have existed. If everything in the universe were contingent, there would have been a moment in the infinite past when nothing existed. But if there was ever nothing, nothing could have begun to exist, because from nothing, nothing comes. Therefore, something necessary must exist. This necessary being either has its necessity from another or has it from itself. Once again, we cannot go back infinitely. There must be a being that is necessary in itself. That necessary being is God. The fourth way is the way of degrees of perfection. We observe that in the world there are things more or less good, more or less true, more or less noble. We use terms like better or hotter, but more or less only makes sense if compared to a maximum. For example, something is hotter insofar as it approaches maximum heat. Therefore, there must exist something that is the cause of all these perfections. Something that is maximally good, maximally true, and maximally being. That maximum is God. The fifth way is the way of order and finality, or teleology. This is a favorite of many. We see that things lacking intelligence, like plants or planets, always or almost always act in the same way to achieve an end. An acorn always seeks to become an oak. But if they lack intelligence, how do they know their end? They cannot be directed to an end by chance. They must be directed by someone who does have intelligence, in the same way an arrow is directed to its target by an archer. That intelligent archer who directs everything to its end is God. It's important to note something. The God proven by the 5 ways is the God of the philosophers. He is the first mover, the first cause, the necessary being. He is not yet the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is reason reaching its limit. For Thomas, reason leads us to the temple's portico. It tells us that someone is home. But to know who that someone is, to know him as a loving Father who incarnates for us, we need revelation faith to open the door for us. Having established his metaphysics, Thomas now applies it to the human being. What are we? Here, again, he relies on Aristotle against the Platonic ideas that dominated his era. The Platonic view, popularized by Saint Augustine, was dualistic. For Platonists, the human being is essentially an immortal soul that is trapped in or using a body, like a pilot in a ship. The body is a prison from which the soul wishes to escape. But Thomas says no. Adopting Aristotle's hylomorphism, Thomas declares that the human being is a radical unity of body and soul. Hylo means matter, body, and morphe means form, soul. The soul is not a ghost in the machine. The soul is the substantial form of the body. This means it's the principle that makes a collection of matter a living human body. Your soul is what makes you you. You don't have a body, you are a united body-soul. This has revolutionary consequences. First, it values the body and the material world. The body is not evil. It's essential to being human. It's how we experience the world, how we learn, and how we act. In fact, Thomas argues that all our knowledge begins in the senses. Nihil est in intellectu quod non sit prius in sensu. Nothing is in the intellect that was not first in the senses. He rejects Plato's idea that we are born with innate ideas. We learn this way. We see 10 different dogs, sensible data. Our intellect, using its power of abstraction, draws out the universal form or essence of dogness from those particular images. Thus, we form the concept dog. But here Thomas faces a problem. If the soul is so united with the body, how can it be immortal? If the form, soul, cannot exist without the matter, body, doesn't the soul die when the body dies? This is where Thomas goes beyond Aristotle. He argues that the human soul is different. Since the soul can perform operations that transcend matter, such as thinking about abstract concepts, justice, truth, or knowing the universal, the soul itself must be immaterial or subsistent. If it is subsistent, it means it can exist by itself. Thus, when the body dies, the soul, being the form, separates but is not destroyed. It survives. This, for Thomas, also makes the Christian doctrine of the resurrection of the body philosophically necessary. The soul longs for its body because it is not a complete person without it. If we are this unity of body and soul and our end is to know the Supreme Being, how should we live? Here we enter into Thomas Aquinas' ethics. Like Aristotle, Thomas is a eudaemonist. This means that ethics is based on the pursuit of eudaimonia, or human happiness and flourishing. But what does this happiness consist of? Aristotle located it in a life of virtue, especially philosophical contemplation, lived within the polis. Thomas agrees, but says this is only imperfect happiness, the kind we can achieve in this life. Since our intellect is made to know the ultimate truth and our will is made to love the ultimate good, our perfect and final happiness can only be one thing: the beatific vision, seeing God face to face in the afterlife. His entire ethical system is a map to reach that destination. And how do we navigate? First, through natural law. This is one of his most influential and often misunderstood concepts. Natural law is not a list of rules carved in stone. It is the participation of the rational creature in God's eternal law. Put more simply, God designed the universe with an intelligent order, the eternal law, and He gave us reason so we could understand that order and act in accordance with it. The first principle of natural law is simple and undeniable: do good and avoid evil. All other precepts derive from this. And how do we know what is good? Thomas says that good is that to which we tend by nature. We have a natural inclination to preserve our being, hence killing is wrong. We have a natural inclination which we share with animals to procreate and educate offspring. And we have a natural inclination, unique to rational beings, to know the truth, especially about God, and to live in society. From these inclinations, our reason deduces moral precepts. Do not steal, do not lie, honor your parents, seek the truth. Natural law is universal because human nature is universal. It is immutable in its basic principles. It is the foundation upon which Thomas builds justice and human laws. In fact, for Thomas, a human law, like a congressional law, that directly contradicts natural law is not a true law. It is, as St. Augustine would say, a perversion of the law and does not bind in conscience. But law alone is not enough. To achieve happiness, we need to practice virtues. A virtue is a good habit. It's like a second nature that allows us to do good with ease and joy. Thomas adopts the 4 cardinal virtues of the Greeks: prudence, practical reason for choosing well; justice, giving to each what is due; fortitude, to resist fear; and temperance, to moderate pleasures. These are the natural virtues, which we can develop through practice and reason. They perfect our lives in this world. But Thomas, as a Christian, adds something more. To achieve the beatific vision, supernatural happiness, we need help. We need the theological virtues, which are direct gifts from God infused by grace: faith, to believe in what we don't see; hope, to desire heaven; and charity, to love God above all things and our neighbor as ourselves. Charity or love is the form of all virtues. It is what unites them and gives them their true purpose. Thus, Thomas's ethics is a journey from natural reason to supernatural love, a path towards total happiness. Thomas's work was so vast and revolutionary that it wasn't immediately accepted. In fact, shortly after his death in 1274, some of his theses, especially the Aristotelian ones, were condemned by the Bishop of Paris in 1277. They feared that his rationalism and reliance on a pagan philosopher like Aristotle would endanger faith. Ironically, what Thomas was trying to do was save faith from irrationalism. Nevertheless, the power of his synthesis was undeniable. The Dominicans, his order, fiercely defended his work. Over time, his thought was not only accepted, but became the official philosophy of the Catholic Church for centuries. He was canonized and named a doctor of the Church. His Summa Theologica, though unfinished, is considered one of the culminating works of human thought, an attempt to organize all reality, from God to the stones, into a single coherent system. Of course, his system is not without its critics. Later philosophers, like Duns Scotus and William of Ockham, would begin to dismantle his close connection between faith and reason, arguing that God's will was more important than his intellect, paving the way for modernity. Modern science, over time, would challenge the Aristotelian physics on which some of his examples were based, although many Thomists argue that his metaphysical principles, act, potency, causality, do not depend on outdated physics. Enlightenment philosophers like Kant would criticize his proofs of God, arguing that reason cannot prove the existence of something beyond sensible experience. Kant would say that Thomas confused the categories of the mind with reality. And in the modern world, his ethics of natural law are often a source of debate, especially in discussions about morality and rights, where the idea of a fixed human nature is questioned. However, Thomas's legacy endures. His insistence that faith should not fear reason, but embrace it, resonates deeply today. We live in an era of apparent conflict between science and religion, between empirical analysis and the search for meaning. Thomas Aquinas stands as a giant who reminds us that we don't have to choose, that the pursuit of truth, whether through a telescope or through prayer, is ultimately the same pursuit. Aquinas' dumb ox not only spoke, he roared. He created a system of thought as vast and as structured as a Gothic cathedral, a place where every idea, every argument has its place holding up the entire edifice. His great achievement was to baptize Aristotle. He took the philosopher of logic and observation and put him at the service of a worldview centered on the Christian God of being and love. He showed that there's no need to be afraid of thinking. In the end, Thomas Aquinas' message is one of profound trust. Trust in human reason to know the world, and trust in divine revelation to guide us towards our ultimate end. 2 wings to fly towards truth. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a dense journey, but I hope a fascinating one. Thomas's thought is an ocean, and today we've barely dipped our toes in. If you enjoyed this exploration of great ideas, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. And I'd love to hear from you. Which of Thomas Aquinas' ideas do you find most relevant today? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, curious minds.